Welcome to another episode of Back to the Past. One of the things that I intended to get done on this trip, and I think I probably still will since the weather doesn't sound like it's going to be too bad, I need to pour a slab that'll come out 3 feet from the wall, and this will be for my lumber storage and lumber drying when I pull it off the mill. I'm going to start out by drilling some 1/2-inch diameter holes, and I will epoxy in some 3/8 diameter rebar every 3 feet all the way along this footing. And then what I'll do next is I'll go ahead and I'll bring in probably 2 loads of road base and bring this up to about 3.5 to 4 inches below the top of this, and then the top of this footing is what I will use for grade for the top of the slab. Now this slab isn't anything that has to be pretty, but I probably will slope it away just a little bit. If it gets a little moisture on it, I want it to be able to drain away. I certainly don't want it to drain back toward the wall. And I'm not going to put an expansion joint in it because I'm thinking that this rebar is going to be enough to keep it from sinking. At some point, I guess there could be a lot of weight on this, but what I'll probably end up doing is when I get to actually drying my lumber and will have an awful lot of weight on it, I will run 4x4s or something for dunnage below it that rests on top of this footing so that there's not something that's going to be pushing down on this side of the slab. So first thing I need to do is get started drilling some holes. Today's a sunny day, so my camera's having a hard time when I get into both the shade and the sun, so I think that you can see what I'm doing here in the shade. I may move the camera in a little while and while I'm doing the sunny part, but I've got, I don't know, I guess about 6 or 8 holes to drill here. Is these pieces of rebar that I epoxy into the footing are going to be about 3 feet long, so they'll come out all the way to nearly the edge of the slab. And then I think what I'll do is I'll run a single piece of number 3 rebar parallel to the wall, one here and one on the outside edge. And I'm thinking no more than I'll have on here for I guess unevenly distributed weight would probably be next to nothing. I guess there's going to be a fair amount of weight if I'm drying an awful lot of green lumber, but it'll be pretty evenly distributed. All right, well, I will epoxy those rebar dowels that I've got cut into place. I'm using, it's called Sika Pro Select, and I love Sika products. I've used them all my career. But what there is there are 2 parts of a putty in here in plastic tubes, I guess. One is black in color, the other is white in color. And as you squeeze the handle, both tubes, or parts of both tubes, come up, and they mix in a mixing chamber here and come out gray in the end. And very often there'll be a little bit more of the white or the black that'll squirt out at first, so I tend to waste maybe the first pump or 2, but then after that it seems to work pretty good. I'll go ahead and grout these in. I've driven stakes on the ends. I've got a string line set up. It's time to drive some stakes and then put in some 2x4 forms. Okay, I got forms in on the side. I've got the end yet to put in, but I may not put that in actually until I'm near the end of the pour. So it's time to start on some rebar. I've got it to where there's a 1/2 inch of drainage from the wall back this way. So it should stay level enough to be able to stack lumber without any problem. But in case there is some moisture that gets in here, there's enough of a flow that it should run off the edge. So I'll get the rebar tied in now. Well, I got this ready to pour 4 days ago, and I had hoped to pour it back then, but the weather has gotten kind of cold, so I hadn't been able to pour for the last couple days. Wanted to wait for a day where the forecast wasn't supposed to be below freezing overnight, and tonight looks like that night. It's actually supposed to get up to about 50 degrees today. It's just above freezing now. I've got a little bit to get ready. I got to get water hauled into my barrel and get the tractor fired up and some cement hauled over here, and then I'll be ready to pour. Well, I poured this concrete pretty dry, but it's a chilly day, so it's not setting up too terribly fast. This back here, it was probably 6 hours ago, maybe 7 hours ago that I poured this, and it took me a couple hours to do the entire thing. So I may be out here even after dark with a flashlight, putting a little better finish on it. I do have an insulated blanket. You can probably see it in the corner of the photo, that red one, that I will drag in here and cover this tonight. But that probably won't happen until 9 or 10 o'clock. Shouldn't be a problem. The temperature's not supposed to drop below 40 tonight. Time to do a little more finishing. I think I'll call this the end of the episode. This will have some set time. I have to head back to Colorado, and I'm going to bring my trailer back empty so that when I get to Colorado I can load it up with some of the lumber that's already been sitting in my garage there drying. I need to get that cleaned out anyway. And this will give me some space to be able to do it. It'll be outside to where it should acclimate to Arkansas's climate, and then I'll be able to use it when the time comes around. See you on the next one. I appreciate you being here.